Welcome to the Red Sneaker Writers Podcast. News, interviews, and writing tips for people who are serious about having a writing career and want some practical knowledge to help them achieve it. Your host is the nationally best-selling author of more than 50 books, William Bernhardt.
Hello, Red Sneaker Writers. This episode goes out on November 2nd, 2020. If this episode sounds a little different from some of the ones you've heard in the past, there is a reason for that. I'm using my mobile equipment today, the same stuff I use when I do a live remote from WriterCon or from one of my small group writing seminars. And I'm doing that for a reason, because Oklahoma is currently in the midst of a major ice storm, the worst in 17 years. And at my place, we haven't had power for 5 days. So my usual process of recording in a soundproof studio is not happening today. As a result, you may occasionally hear some background sounds like the wind sweeping down the plains, or a plane flying overhead, or our backyard neighbor's rooster crowing. What is it with that? I mean, I'm sure the eggs are nice, but come on, get a dog already. It's not like we live on a farm. Anyway, nonetheless, this is my time to record the podcast, and I'm staying on schedule because I, like you, am a red sneaker writer. And that means we don't make excuses, right? We write every day, we get the job done, and that applies to this podcast just like it does anything else. So, here we are. I am also aware that this is the slightly post-Halloween episode, just past the spooky season. And it has been pretty spooky, actually, when, after 7, I couldn't find my way to the sofa without using my hands, or I couldn't write past noon because my laptop had used up all its power. Hey, let's all go to Panera Bread. They've got high-speed internet and electricity. Anyway, so because this is the spooky season, I've asked my wife, Lara Bernhardt, excellent author of many things, including the supernatural suspense series, the Wantland Files, to talk a little bit about how you write to quicken the reader's pulse. My interview this time is with David Gaughran, author of Amazon Decoded and books on BookBub and just about every aspect of book marketing. I am not exaggerating when I say I think David probably knows more about book marketing than anybody else on earth. He's been on the podcast before, but not in a long time. So given all the excitement going on in the book world, given that book sales have soared during the lockdown, and we're coming up on the holiday season when you especially want your books to sell well. More on that later. But I thought it was a good time to have David back and see what tips he could get everyone. But first, the news. Lots of exciting news in the book world right now. We're just coming out of the Frankfurt Book Fair, which some people say is the biggest and most important book event of the year. But how does that work during the lockdown? Did they cancel? No, they just went completely virtual. And a lot of deals were made, but let me talk about the one that is the biggest deal, that's really got tongues wagging, because to some extent, we thought we were past the day of the big book deal. I mean, books are still sold, but much more modestly these days. You rarely read big headlines about books going to auction and selling for, cajillions of dollars. But here's an exception, because at the book fair, Felicity Blunt, who was an agent at the UK version of Curtis Brown, sold what is bound to be the biggest book of the fair, probably the biggest book of this year and many other years. And it's a debut novel, a first-time novel titled Lessons in Chemistry by a woman named Bonnie Garmus, who has never published before. She's worked as a copywriter in the past. It was bought by Doubleday, and like I said, rumored North American rights for $2 million. And as if that wasn't enough, she's reportedly sold 22 other foreign deals. Now, to be fair, you've got to look at that $2 million realistically. They're not going to pay it all at once. It'll be paid out in parcels, probably a piece on signing and a piece on delivery of the manuscript, a piece when the hardcover comes out, softcover, and there may even be more divisions. Nonetheless, I think it's safe to say that she is going to be able to eat for a while. The agent, Felicity Blunt, said that she, quote, has never seen such a consistently excited reaction to any debut writer on the international stage. Now, I'm not going to mislead you. This does not happen every time, but apparently it does still happen. And if that helps you sit down in your chair and get your writing done today, then excellent. That's why I'm sharing it. But even apart from these blowout deals like this one, I got to remind you, book sales have been very good this year, almost to an extent that I'm starting to feel guilty because I know a lot of people are hurting during the lockdown, but authors and book sales are doing well. New information from Written Word Media, a source that I tend to trust, especially when it comes to eBooks and self-publishing, because a lot of the New York Times and the APA figures tend to focus on print, tend to focus on bookstore sales. But that's a relatively, well, it is a small portion of the overall book market right now. So Written Word Media is there to give us more insight into how ebooks and self-published authors are performing. And the answer is, according to them, the average reader is purchasing 30% more ebook units per month than they were before the pandemic hit. Think about that. 30%. That's almost a third. People are reading a third more ebooks than they were before. Who has that time? I wish I had that kind of time. I would love to read more, or maybe it's just impulse shopping. Who knows? Ebooks do lend themselves to that. Clearly, in this arena, when people couldn't get to bookstores, couldn't get to libraries, or didn't want to, they experimented with ebooks, found out it wasn't so bad after all, and did it over and over again. For that matter, that same study indicated that Kindle Unlimited has grown 3 times faster this year than it did in 2019. Some people were saying KU membership was pretty much maxed out. Well, turns out not. So as I said before, we're approaching the holiday season, Thanksgiving, and then the big kahuna, Christmas. People at Ingram, the largest distributor of books to bookstores and others, libraries and whatnot, 2 guys, Pete McCarthy and Jess Johns, have given some advice on how to maximize your sales during the holidays. Some of what they say is obvious, so I'm going to skip that. But let's focus more on what may not be obvious to you. So you, Red Sneaker writers, particularly those of you who have self-published or have some degree of control over the marketing of your books, can take advantage of what is likely to be the boom sales time in a boom sales year for books. First, here's something you need to know. American consumers are planning to do more than half of their holiday shopping online this year. That's probably not a big surprise. You already knew that malls were dwindling and people are shopping at Amazon and elsewhere online. But this year, with the coronavirus still very much with us, more so than ever. And that's not just young people, that's everywhere. That's all across all demographic categories. Good grief. My mom, who is into her 90s, shops online. Everybody is shopping online. E-commerce growth is expected to go more than 30% this year. That's more than twice what was expected earlier. What are the factors that are going to influence those online purchasing decisions? Online, 40% of consumers say they're going to start shopping before Thanksgiving, and I thought that was just outliers, like my wacky big sister, who not only starts, she's usually finished her Christmas shopping before Thanksgiving. I mean, get a job or whatever. Anyway, so they're starting earlier. They're shopping online. Most important factors they'll consider: low price, free shipping, discounts and promotions, availability, and reviews. Well, eBooks always ship free, pretty much, other than your internet connection costs. But you can control the price if you're self-publishing. You can offer discounts during the holidays and should do special promotions, and you should. And you can very much try and push to get good reviews. Contact your fans, contact your friends, contact your mother. Any legit person with an Amazon account can post a good 5-star review for you. And believe me, they really do make a difference. You know that when you go shopping for something, don't you read the reviews first or second, third, but you read them, see what other people are saying, and get some perspective on it. Here's some tips for those of you who may be placing ads. The least expensive ads can be placed on Christmas Day, the first Tuesday in December, the Monday before Thanksgiving, and the first week of November, which is what we're in when this podcast goes out. The most expensive times are Cyber Monday, Black Friday, and the 7 days before Christmas and Thanksgiving. So I wouldn't even go there. You don't need that kind of competition or unnecessary expense. Focus on the first group of dates when the market is less crowded, and then offer your special promotions or do price pulsing, lower your prices, and see if you can't boost your sales during this very important time. A few more interesting stories. Molly Stern, who, among other things, she used to be with Crown, the publishing house. She was Michelle Obama's editor for Becoming, which of course has been a blockbuster nonfiction book. Anyway, she's left Crown, and now she started her own publishing house, which she's going to call Zando. That's with a Z, Zando, an independent publishing company. Well, this sort of thing happens from time to time, but I'm getting two things out of this. One, she'd rather be on her own than with a major publisher, which may be an indication that she, like many other people, are seeing that the market is moving away from the big five to independent companies. I also like what is, an unusual marketing strategy. Let's put it that way. She's got a different model. Rather than relying chiefly on bookstores and the traditional retailers, she's going to team up with high-profile individuals, stars, influencers, companies, well-known brands to act as her publishing partners to promote books to their fans and customers, which, makes a lot of sense. Don't rely exclusively on bookstores. That's today a minority share of the market. Some people say it's 25% at best. Some people say it's more like 5 or 6%, but it's not even the plurality anymore. So instead, she's trying to influence all those people buying online with influencers, which, I don't get it, but apparently they influence people to buy things, or brands and companies that they know, or celebrities who are used to endorsing products. This just makes a lot of sense. And it ties in very nicely to the latest blog post essay, really, from Mike Shatzhin, who I have mentioned before, one of the leading authorities on publishing, both the trade publishing world and the self-publishing market. He was writing, talking about what I've discussed before on the podcast, the fact that Simon & Schuster is for sale, and a lot of people are expressing interest, but nobody seems to be buying it, which suggests that nobody thinks it's worth as much as Simon & Schuster thinks it's worth. But in the course of that essay, he said some very interesting things about trade publishing. Well, let me just quote. General trade publishing will soon be recognized as an artifact of a trade that no longer exists. What he's saying is that a market that's focused on what's